Hi, there is um, an easy way by which to recognize how, okay, the phrase is to notice in how deep water are you. And what I mean by that is, now life has emerged from what we know of evolutionarily, from the primordial ocean, from unicellular organisms to then formed invertebrates and then vertebrates, and now we're there. Yeah. So we have the entire different species, different forms of life, whose history, the emergence of life, has come from the primordial ocean. Now that we are here, we can, by our own, what is called as spiritual development, by several factions of people, several groups of people, they call it as spiritual development. But I would say it's more it's more a journey into within, like we had we had the primordial ocean. We had like in any ocean, if you see, there is a surface, and then there is a middle path where there are different currents flowing through, and then there's the lower part of the ocean, which is much deeper, which may be more in darkness, and then there's the ocean floor. So there we have all of these different phases. Similarly, when we look at our own self, how we interact with our senses, we may be drawn by the different sensory inputs that's there, and how we respond is through the surface. So that could be seen like the surface of the ocean. And then we have several tides going through us. We may have several emotions moving through as we interact through different forms of experiences, different people, circumstances. We go through several currents within our own psyche, within our own emotions. Our intellect and spirit waves through. So that's like the middle part of the ocean. And then there is something much more deeper, where we are relatively stiller, and there is more of an observation of life in a more of a contemplative, kind of little meditative kind of a way. And then there is the ocean bed, which is like rock bottom, absolutely still, stable. And we can kind of appreciate life by this way, wherein each of us has oceanic depth. We have layers, there are depths to us. So depending on, we often speak about climbing the highest mountain and going to the deepest ocean and exploring all the wide the width and expanse of earth and outer space. Not much, or at least not many. There are people who have explored depths within their own person, and somehow they are relegated to esoteric groups. So oftentimes you can't quite get. Sometimes it's not so easy to get a grasp of what they're talking. So this reference to an ocean may be much more relatable, I'm thinking. Further from there, what prompted me to make this video is the idea of bioflurescence. What I meant by that is, when you look at videos about oceanic floors, about creatures in the ocean, at the very deep, dark parts of the ocean, in the abysses, in the crypts, you may have heard of marine creatures that are glowing in the dark. They have bioflurescence. They emit light. Within our own beings too, we may have heard through several, what we may have relegated to as spiritual experiences, is that people talk of the light within. Allow your light to shine through. When you compare it with the ocean, creatures living in the dark almost oceanic bed have natural light in some way. There's life emitting light, light that is emitted from the living system itself. And within our own being, when we can access our own depths, we are most likely to also encounter a light from within ourselves. And the more you're living in these depths within your own self, the more what is called as the aura or the electromagnetic field around us is more likely to be colored, to have effulgence of the depth where you're living from. So when you hear about people having a shiny aura, they have a certain glow around them, and when you hear people talking in terms of that, we may be actually seeing a visual representation of how deep they may be living from, most often than not, within their own oceanic constitution. Each one of us have these depths, and depending on where we are living more from, are we living from the surface, are we living from the waves and the tides and of their emotions, which gets moved according to how the circumstances are, according to how people are, or are we living in more deeper, stiller spaces where we are not so much reacting to life but more responding to life? And then there is further, where there is rock bottom, that I call that as a state that is further from responding. In my estimate, I call that as living, as in it is a combination of being in nothing plus a state of being in the present, and that gives a very unique kind of a person, which is further from responding. So you have reaction, you have response, and then what I was called as living, which is a combination of being in nothing and being in the present. And then you have the choice of responding or reacting. So you have all of those things. So depending on where, in which depth are you spending more often your time, the more often you tend to live life from, depending on that, your aura will have that kind of a light, or you're more likely to have that kind of a presence. See what this thought makes available to you. See if it changes a perspective of how you see yourself, how you see other people, and where may we be, and what is called as the ocean of consciousness. If what I'm saying here about what may be depths in each person can be sort of reflected back on the idea of what is the ocean of consciousness, and what becomes available to our thinking, individual, collective thinking, to a better understanding of where we have been born into, which is this place we are living in, and who may we be as individuals interacting with other individuals. Thank you for listening. Good day.